If your garden is starting to look a little rough right now, don't worry, you're not alone. Maybe your tomatoes aren't producing like they were a month ago, your cucumbers have powdery mildew, your zucchini has finally given up, and you're wondering if gardening season is coming to an end. And it might feel that way, but August is actually one of the most important planting months of the entire year. While a lot of people are pulling plants out and calling it quits, experienced gardeners are already getting their fall gardens started. Might seem a little soon, but in many parts of the country, the vegetables you plant over the next few weeks will actually produce better than the ones you planted back in spring. Today I'm going to show you exactly what you can plant in August, whether your first frost is right around the corner, still a couple months away, or you garden somewhere mild year-round. And by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what deserves a spot in your garden right now and what can wait a little longer. Before we start talking about specific vegetables, there's one thing that's much more important to understand. August doesn't mean the same thing everywhere. For some of you, your first frost is only 6 or 7 weeks away. Others have 3 months of growing weather left. And if you live somewhere with mild winters like I do, your biggest challenge isn't frost at all, it's making it through the heat until cooler weather arrives. So instead of thinking about USDA growing zones, I want you to think about one simple question. When is my average first frost date? If you don't know, don't worry. That's exactly why we created gardenguide.com. For free, just enter your zip code and it'll show you your average frost dates, plus exactly when to plant each crop where you live throughout the year. I'll put a link in the description below if you'd like to check it out. Once you know that date, everything else becomes much easier because you can simply count backward to figure out what still has enough time left to mature, or gardenguide.com will tell you exactly what that is. Now let's start with gardeners who still have enough warm weather left for one more round of summer crops. If you've still got about 60 days or more before your average first frost, there's good news. You still have time for one more round of warm season favorites. But instead of planting the exact same varieties you grew back in spring, this time look for varieties with shorter days to maturity. The faster they grow, the better your chances of harvesting before cooler weather slows everything down. Let's start with one of the easiest, bush beans. Bush beans are one of the fastest growing summer vegetables you can grow. Many varieties are ready to harvest in as little as 50 to 60 days, making them perfect for a late season planting. Since they're direct sown, they'll germinate quickly in the warm soil, and before you know it, you'll be picking fresh beans again. Cucumbers are another excellent choice if you have enough growing time left. Look for varieties that mature in 50 to 60 days. Keep them watered while they're getting established, and they'll often reward you with a fresh flush of cucumbers just as weather begins to cool. Summer squash and zucchini also mature quickly. If you've ever wished your spring planting had lasted longer, this is your chance for a second harvest before the season ends. If you're not sick of zucchini already. And don't forget basil, because basil thrives in warm weather, and August planting can grow surprisingly fast and keep producing until frost finally arrives. One thing that's really changed the way I garden over the years is that I stopped thinking of my vegetable beds as something I plant once in spring. Instead, I think of them as constantly changing. When the beans finish, something new goes in. When the cucumbers are done, I don't leave that space empty. I plant something else. The same goes for tomatoes, for squash, or any other crop that has reached the end of its season. That's another form of succession planting, and it's one of the biggest differences between getting one harvest each year and harvesting from the same space for months and months, practically year-round in some spots. And August is one of the best times of the year to make that transition. Now maybe you're watching this thinking, Brian, my first frost is only a month away. That's okay, because these next ones I'm going to show you are actually the ones that I look forward to planting the most every year. Not because they'll survive cooler weather, but because many of them actually grow better in it. If you've ever planted broccoli or lettuce in spring only to have it bolt, turn bitter, or struggle through the heat, fall is where these crops really shine. The cooler temperatures slow the plants down just enough to produce sweeter flavors, better texture, and in many cases, fewer pest problems. Let's start with one of the most popular, Broccoli is one of those vegetables that almost everyone wants to grow, but timing is everything. Rather than planting seeds now, in most climates, August is usually the time to transplant seedlings so they have plenty of time to establish before cooler weather arrives. One of the reasons broccoli tastes better in the cooler weather is because the plant converts some of its stored starches into sugars as the temperatures drop. It's a natural response to the cold, and it's why homegrown fall broccoli is often much sweeter than what you buy at the grocery store. Cauliflower follows a very similar schedule. It appreciates consistent moisture while it's growing and really benefits from those gradually cooling temperatures as it begins forming heads. Cabbage is another excellent choice for an August planting. As weather cools, the heads become dense and crisp, and you'll often have fewer issues with the heat stress that can affect spring-grown plants. And kale may be one of the most forgiving vegetables you can grow at this time of year. In many climates, it will continue producing well into late fall and even after light frost. And again, when kale gets hit by frost, it actually tastes sweeter. And kale needs all the help it can get, in my opinion. Swiss chard is another favorite because it handles changing temperatures beautifully. You can harvest the outer leaves over and over again, often for months, making it one of the longest producing vegetables you can plant this time of year. All of these plants take some time to mature, so if you do have heavy freezes in winter, you probably want to get an earlier start right now by getting some of these as transplants at the garden center versus starting from seed. It gives you several weeks head start and greatly increases your chance of harvesting before winter arrives, even though a lot of these can take quite a bit of cold. Now, if you're looking for something you can harvest much sooner, the next group might be my favorite. Some of these vegetables can be ready in less than a month. Radishes are probably the fastest vegetable you can grow all year. Many varieties are ready to harvest in just 25 to 35 days, making them perfect if you're looking for a quick payoff. One tip though, radishes grown in cooler weather are usually much milder and less likely to become woody or overly spicy than those grown during the heat of summer. Arugula is another crop that grows incredibly fast. In fact, in Britain they call it rocket because it is so fast. You'll often be picking baby leaves in just a few weeks. And because it prefers cooler weather, the flavor is usually much less peppery than it is during the hottest part of summer. If you've never grown baby bok choy, August is a great time to try it. It matures quickly, handles cool weather beautifully, and it's one of those vegetables that often bolts in spring, but performs much better heading into fall. Turnips are another underrated fall crop. You get 2 harvests from one planting, the roots underground and the leafy greens above. And just like many other cool season vegetables, both tend to taste sweeter as temperatures begin to cool off. One thing all of these vegetables have in common is that they reward you quickly. If your summer garden has been a little disappointing, these are great crops to get you excited again because you'll be harvesting before you know it. But before you run out to the garden center, there's something really important I need to mention. Just because a vegetable is considered a cool season crop doesn't necessarily mean August is the right time to plant it where you live. If you garden somewhere with extremely hot summers like I do, this is where things get a little different. While gardeners in cooler parts of the country are planting broccoli, cabbage, lettuce, cauliflower right now, I'm waiting. If I planted most of those crops today, they'd be trying to establish themselves in, upper 90-degree temperatures, and in some other places, triple-digit temperatures, and that's just setting them up to struggle. In fact, a lot of these cool season crops won't even sprout until the cooler weather arrives. So instead, I usually just wait until the worst of the heat has passed before planting many of my cool season vegetables. That could be late August or early September. By now, you've probably noticed a pattern. Fall garden isn't about replacing your summer garden with completely different vegetables. It's about taking advantage of cooler temperatures to grow crops that simply perform better at the upcoming time of year. So here are a few more that deserve a spot in almost every fall garden. Lettuce is one of the vegetable crops I look forward to growing the most once the weather starts cooling off. And if you've seen the news lately, it's probably a good idea to at least grow your own lettuce. If you've ever tried growing it in the heat of summer, you've probably seen it bolt, which means just shoot up ahead of flowers and seeds. It turns bitter. or it just simply refuses to thrive. And that's because lettuce naturally prefers cooler temperatures. So in a lot of the country, August is the perfect planting time to start planting lettuce again. But if you garden somewhere where the heat does continue into late August, September, you may just want to wait a little longer until daytime temperatures begin to come down. One of the things I love most about lettuce is how quickly it rewards you. Many loose leaf varieties can be harvested a little at a time, letting the plant continue producing for weeks instead of just giving you a single harvest. Carrots are another one of my favorite fall crops because cool weather produces sweeter carrots. The key is keeping the seed bed consistently moist while the seeds germinate. Carrots can take anywhere from 1 to 3 weeks to sprout, and if the soil dries out at any time, germination can be spotty. Once they're established though, they're surprisingly low maintenance. I'm going to leave a link down in the video description to growing guides for as many of these as I have, especially with lettuce. We've got some great tricks in there, and with carrots, I've got 3 different ways to grow them to keep that moisture in the soil without you having to constantly be running out there to check them. Moving on, beets are another excellent choice. Not only do you get delicious roots, but the greens are edible too, giving you 2 harvests from 1 planting. And like carrots, they appreciate the cooler temperatures of late summer and fall. Spinach is one of those vegetables that absolutely loves cool weather. In fact, if your summers are extremely hot, it's often frustrating to grow in spring because it bolts so quickly. And so fall is where spinach really shines. Just remember that if you garden in a very warm climate, you may want to wait until temperatures begin to cool down before sowing your seeds. Many gardeners also forget that peas aren't just a spring crop. In areas with long, mild falls, they can produce beautifully when planted late in the season. Just make sure you give them some type of support as they begin to climb. So let's wrap this up with a few final tips that'll help give everything you plant the best possible start. Before you head out to the garden, there are 3 things I want you to keep in mind that'll give everything you plant a much better chance of success. Number 1, start with healthy soil. Your garden has been working all summer. Heavy feeding crops like tomatoes, squash, peppers, and corn have been pulling the nutrients from the soil for months. So before you plant anything new, take a few minutes to pull out old plants, remove weeds, mix in a little compost, and if needed, replenish your organic fertilizer. Giving your fall crops a fresh start now will pay off for months to come. Number 2, don't forget about the water. One thing that surprises a lot of gardeners is that August can actually be one of the trickiest months for watering. The soil is still warm, so seeds germinate quickly, but that same warm soil dries out much faster than it will a month or 2 from now. Until your seeds sprout and your transplants become established, check them often and don't let the soil dry out. A little extra attention early on can make a huge difference. Number 3, be flexible. Just remember that nature doesn't follow the calendar. Some years the heat hangs on longer than you expected, other years cool weather arrives early. If you're staring at a 105-degree forecast, don't feel like you have to plant just because the calendar says it's August. Waiting a few weeks for better conditions is almost always better than forcing a cool season crop through the extreme heat. Again, if you're not sure exactly what to plant where you live, don't forget to check out gardenguide.com. Enter your zip code. It'll show you your average frost dates along with personalized planting times for all the crops we talked about today. I'll put a link for that down in the description. And if you enjoyed this video, I think you'll also enjoy this one right here, where I show you exactly how to plan and grow a productive fall garden from start to finish. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.